I'm super excited to do this episode because there is so much to talk about. So let's get through the rigmarole before we get into the actual segments of the show. Remember, this podcast posts every single Wednesday. We give you the first segment. We go through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. The second thing we go through is AFC East news and rumors, and the third thing we go through is the fan Q&A portion of the show where we answer Dolphins fans' questions. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about coming out of OTAs, some players you guys might not have heard of, you guys may have heard of, and some players that have been making huge strides as improvements so far in OTAs. So there's a lot to talk about. And this first piece of news comes from Clyde Christensen's mouth, the Miami Dolphins offensive coordinator. He said in his press conference, he said the most improved player that he has seen so far is running back Jay Ajayi. And he goes into saying that this time last year in OTAs, we really didn't know who our starting running back was going to be. Obviously, Jay was an unproven talent. We had Damian Williams on the roster. We had Kenyon Drake on the roster. Arian Foster, I think, was coming in a little bit later. But, it is a blessing in disguise because a lot of people forget how the continuity and the chemistry of especially in the first few games there. I mean, we really didn't know what to do at the running back position, and then Jay obviously caught fire. I really want to say Jay really caught fire in the 6-game winning streak. So the first 4 games were kind of rough for him. He didn't really have a hallmark game there. I think the biggest play he made was the overtime touchdown against Cleveland, but obviously Jay has proved that he is a legitimate star running back in this league, and he's one of the best in the league. So to hear that he's even improved even more this offseason, Clyde goes in to say how he's improved, and especially in the passing game, he's been working on his hands, he's been working on his routes. He's always been a good. If you watched him coming out of Boise, he's always been a great route. Like, he's never been a bad receiver out of the backfield. So his transition to the NFL and how he makes it look so every time he caught a ball last season, it was like he was catching a rocket, for God's sakes. He made it look so unnatural. So it was a little weird to see that from him coming into the NFL and making that transition. So it's nice to hear that he's improving in that area because we really need him to. And again, that is a huge part of Adam Gase's offense, is getting the running back involved out of the backfield. So that's some really good piece of news right there. The next piece of news is Charles Harris has been turning heads in training camp. He's been a matchup nightmare for the Miami Dolphins in OTAs. He's been matching up with Laramie Tunsil. He's been giving him fits. Obviously, you can't really tell if Charles Harris is, you can't really judge a lineman, or that it be defensive lineman or offensive lineman, until training camp, because they don't have pads on. It's not physical. It's like touch football. It really isn't real football, so we don't really know until training camp swings around. So this is especially how cautious Adam's being in OTAs. He's really being cautious not to get players hurt and stuff of that nature. So we really don't know. As far as his technique, you can really judge a defensive lineman's technique, and from all reports, Charles Harris's technique is off the charts. Obviously, he's been doing a better job of setting the edge. Obviously, Charles Harris talked about in the press conference he had, I think it was 2 days ago or yesterday, how Cameron Wake was really teaching him how to set the edge when you got, reach blocked and stuff like that. Just, technical stuff like that. That he's been really impressive. He's been explosive. Obviously, we expected that from Charles Harris. His first step was the best coming out of the draft, and that's saying something with players like Myles Garrett, Derek Barnett, who had really impressive first steps. So it's nice to hear that Charles Harris is having a really, really good start to the offseason so far. And I expect him to even get even better, because he is such a hard worker. He's a gym rat, and he's never satisfied with himself, which is very Cameron Wake-esque in that way. So it's nice to hear that he's having a really good OTA so far. And again, you can't really judge it until training camp, but as far as his first step, his technique, his pass rushing moves, to a little bit more layman's terms there, have been off the charts. And again, it's nice to hear that he's setting the edge in the running game. And as far as that goes, again, you really can't judge it until training camp when you got pads on. So you can take that with a grain of salt, but it's just nice to hear. I mean, it really is nice to hear that he's looking like a star out there right now. So that's really nice to hear. This next piece of news is really interesting. And the Dolphins wide receiver, we know that we have Devontae, right? Devontae has had a insanely good OTA so far, so that's really good news. In case you guys don't know, he's been very consistent. He's healthy in terms of what Clyde Christensen said when he held his press conference. He looks way healthy. These were his words. He said last season, the difference between last season and this season with Devontae Parker, these were his words, is one day he would look like a Hall of Famer. These are his words, quote. He said that. He said one day and Clyde has been around the block. He's coached players like Marvin Harrison, T.Y. Hilton, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark. So he's seen some great receiving threats in his day. And to call Devontae Parker saying that he looked like a Hall of Famer is pretty high praise coming from him. So the thing he said, the difference between last season and this season is just more consistent. And what he said from last season is one day he would look like a Hall of Famer, and then the next he just wasn't the same person. And that's what we saw from him on game day. One day he would take over, literally wreck whoever defensive coordinator were playing, or he would wreck their game plan. He would be a matchup nightmare, and then the next game he just would take a vacation. So it's nice to hear that. That's another thing nice to hear, because Clyde, he's very candid. He doesn't lie, and he's a really emotional person, and he'll tell you if somebody's doing bad or not. So it's nice to hear that from Devontae Parker. And then back to my original point. So we have Jarvis, who's one of the best in the league, and Kenny Stills, who's one of the best in the league. And Clyde said that all three of them have had a great OTA so far, and he expects them to be a very special threesome, is what he said in his press conference, which is really nice to hear again. Again, he's coached some really good passing attacks in his day, and to have that kind of praise towards those three is a very, very high compliment coming from him. We really don't know who's going to be the other guy, because obviously we drafted Isaiah Ford, and I think the Dolphins are really looking for another possession guy. Who's a football savvy guy. We have Jarvis, who gets double team on every third down, so we need Devontae to step up in that area. Kenny's really not that guy on third down. He's more of a game breaker, big play guy. So I think the Dolphins do need somebody who can help them move the chains outside of Jarvis. And I think Devontae can help in that area, but I think they need one more possession guy, maybe like a Wes Welker-esque, Julian Edelman-esque guy, to Chris Hogan kind of guy who can just make plays on third and shorts or third and eights or third and longs, that can be a possession guy. And I think that's what the Dolphins were looking for in Isaiah Ford, and hopefully we get that from him, who obviously was a steal in the 7th round. Rashawn Scott's another guy, but that's kind of not his game as well. And then Leonte Crew, that's definitely a part of his game. He's a great route runner, at least coming out of college, but he can also put the ball in the paint. So my point is we really don't know who's going to be that fourth man out. And I think the guy that we need to be that fourth man out is somebody who can do that Wes Welker type hard-nosed Steve Largent kind of things that we need. We just need a chain mover. We need a possession guy. So this next story is really interesting. The undrafted free agent Drew Morgan, if you guys don't know, wide receiver from Arkansas, he's had a really good OTA so far from reports from Barry Jackson, Omar Kelly. I think Armando reported on it, but you guys can go read about it. It's very interesting stuff. Adam Gase talked about it in his press conference, that Drew Morgan has had a really, really good OTA so far, which is really good news. He's not coming out of college. He's not really athletic. He ran a 4.7, which is actually faster than Juice's, who ran a 4.77 coming out of college, and he's just a football player. Same thing with Drew Morgan. Drew Morgan's just a football player. He knows how to get open. He's been making plays left and right in OTAs. He describes, when asked how he would describe his game, and if you just watch him coming out of Arkansas, he says, "I'm the guy on third and longs, third and shorts, in the fourth quarter when you need a first down, I'm going to catch it." He is just that kind of player, and I think we need that kind of player on this football team. I think Tannehill needs it. I think he needs another Devon Best type of a guy who's just a chain mover. I think we need that back, and I think Drew Morgan can be that, and make our passing attack even more. And it's really nice to hear that he's having a great OTA so far, and he's really been eye-opening, because nobody expected Drew Morgan to come into OTAs and I expected him, if he had a chance to make the roster, that he would make it on special teams, which I'm sure he still will have a role in special teams, but now he has a chance to make the roster as a legitimate four-man out, and a situational receiver, which is really good. That's great news. So hopefully we found an NFL gem in Drew Morgan. And obviously Rashawn Scott's had a great OTA so far. So that fourth guy out is going to be some high competition with Isaiah Ford and Leonte Carew, whose jobs are not safe because of those guys. So this is really good news. This is really, really good news. I cannot stress that enough. Julius Thomas has been turning heads in OTA so far, which is really nice. He's had a good OTA so far, and obviously he's been getting rave reviews since he has been in the building in terms of a leadership role, and he's going to be a very reliable target for Ryan Tannehill. And like I've brought this up before, any great NFL quarterback in the league right now has a really good tight end. Every single one of them do. And it's very important in today's offense that you have that guy who you cannot guard with a corner, you can't guard with a safety, and you can't guard with a linebacker because they're that big of a mismatch. And that's Julius Thomas. He's just a mismatch. It's going to open up the middle of the field. It's going to give Tannehill another target in the red zone. And Tannehill needs a great tight end. It's very important to an NFL quarterback to have a really good tight end. And we finally found that in Julius Thomas. I really do believe that. As long as he can stay healthy, that's the only thing. That's the only thing that is really standing in the way. So again, all the OTA news so far has had just been amazing. Especially from another news story we have to go through is the Dolphins' defensive secondary. And I know a lot of people are extremely worried about the performance of our secondary this upcoming season, because most people who don't watch Dolphins football, or just or you do and they're still kind of concerned about it. Clyde in his press conference really went in depth about how fast that secondary is looking. He said TJ McDonald has had he's just looked amazing. He had a pick in red zone drills. He had an interception. He said from this time last year, comparing what they looked like to last year, he said they're playing faster. It's tighter windows for Ryan to throw into, which is good for Ryan. So they just look a whole lot better, which is great news. He said they look, they're smarter, they're playing faster, they're in the right spots, in blitzes. One of the things he really brought up is he said in blitzes, the coverage has been exceptionally better, which is something we really lacked last season. Now, a lot of that had to do with injuries, but it's nice to hear that everybody's in the secondary has been turning heads as well. There's plenty of articles you guys can read about that. I'm sure you can find something. But they have, from everything from the coaches' press conferences, they've been really, really impressed. Same thing with Adam. He said the same thing, that they've been really impressed of the speed of the secondary and how fast they're playing. And how they're in the right spots, which is a huge problem was last season, is just our defense played stupid half the dang time. They just weren't in the right spots. So it's nice to hear that they're playing fast and smart in OTAs so far. So, and again, you can judge you can judge any skill position in OTAs because, other than the fact that they have shorts on and stuff, that's about it. That's the only difference that they'll face in training camp. Obviously, in training camp, you'll have pads. So that's basically the only difference there. So that's, obviously Isaac Asiata, if you guys want any news on him, we can go into that. He's had work at left guard, right guard, and center. We've played him on all three positions, so in case you're wondering where he is going to land, this news is also from the Dolphins press conference, in case you're wondering where I got this news. Isaac Asiata has been playing at all three positions, and I think he's gotten a lot more reps than a lot of people think. Adam's been impressed with him. So far is what he said in his press conference, but he can't really, again, you can't judge an offensive lineman or any kind of lineman until you see them in training camp. So, Isaac is one of the strongest, probably one of the strongest players on the team. Isaac is a exception. He can push you off the ball. That's probably the biggest thing. It's more technique that he has to get down. I would say his transition to the next level, which shouldn't be that big of a learning curve because he did play in a pro-style offense. So it's nice to hear that he's been getting a lot of reps at all three positions. Obviously, that just comes with Adam Gase. He loves, he just wants to make sure everybody's prepared in case somebody got hurt. And obviously, Isaac has also played tackle quite a lot throughout his college career. So he's very versatile, and we're making sure that we plug him in every single position to find, to make sure if somebody did get hurt, he's ready to go. So if you're wondering about Isaac, that's the news on him. As far as other OTA news, Mike Pouncey continues to be cautious with him. Laramie Tunsil, I think he suffered a minor injury, which is like extremely minor, nothing serious, but they're being cautious with Laramie. There's nothing else to really talk about in OTAs, but a lot of stuff to be optimistic about. A lot of surprises in OTAs so far. Some people, like I said, like the Drew Morgan situation, the Rashawn Scott situation. A lot of good things that we're hearing from Dolphins camp that we did not hear from last season. In terms of like Devontae Parker being consistent. I mean, if you go back and watch the press conferences of last season and just watch how much, how like Adam gets just bagging on Devontae Parker. It's just a totally different situation. So let's move into the AFC East news segment of this portion of the podcast. And there's a lot to talk about. A lot of interesting moves that I think you guys are going to be really interested in. In terms of the Patriots, we're going to start with them because as far as the Patriots go, there's nothing to really talk about. The only big news story coming out of Patriots camp is Jimmy Garoppolo is open to discussing an extension. So there you go. I mean, who really cares about Jimmy Garoppolo? Because I certainly don't. The man literally played 2.5 games, or excuse me, 2 or 1.5 games, right? And people act like he's a god. I cannot stand that. You guys don't understand how much I cannot stand that. That is insane to me. It makes me sick even thinking about it. If you play 1.5 games, you're considered a franchise quarterback. I think that's a little ridiculous. Let's see here. What is okay? So let's move on to the Jets. There's a lot of news coming out of the Jets camp. I guess we'll start with David Harris. David Harris is he's unhappy with the Jets. Who isn't unhappy with the Jets? They are completely all this news just means they are literally starting from scratch. They are getting rid of everybody who was a former Jet, who's been a Jet for a while. Everybody's gone. They're trying to. They're definitely tanking. And I'm not gonna say they're tanking, but they want to develop their young talent. All of those young players are gonna be able to play this upcoming season. The Jets are just gonna be fit. Their whole team is just they're gonna play all their young players, which is probably the smart move. Tear it down, put in your young players, and develop them, because you're not gonna win games anyway. So you might as well have something to come out of the season with that you're relatively accomplished, I guess you could say. So, let's get into this. I don't understand why David Harris. I'm trying to find. Okay, here we go. The Jets are going to release linebacker David Harris, but they did not. This is the article. But they did not try to get the 10-year veteran to take a pay cut before deciding to part ways with him. Harris's camp is unhappy with the Jets, though, because there were no negotiations about a reduction in pay before the offseason began in earnest. I mean, why would you? If you're David Harris, you're a veteran. They have Darren Lee on the roster. They have a group of young linebackers already. They're just, they're trying to move on, and it's clear what the Jets are trying to do, and it is the smartest move. I mean, as you know, in my opinion, if this is the roster I was dealing with, this is what I would do. I would just literally wipe the slate clean. And start over. And obviously they got Demario Davis in a trade. He's a younger player who they've had before, and then they let go. There's a lot of weird things going on. But the one thing that they are doing right, that I will say, yeah, that's probably the best move, is just truly starting from scratch and playing young players. Now, this is the biggest news to come out of Jets camp. The Jets are to trade or release Eric Decker. Now, if you're a Dolphins fan, we don't need another receiver, and the last thing we need is to pay another receiver to take up cap room. We need to save that cap for players down the line that we need to extend, but like a Devontae Parker or a Jarvis Landry. So getting Eric Decker would just be stupid for a lot of different reasons. But there is that Adam Gase connection. Obviously, Adam coached him, and he was a part of one of the greatest offenses ever. So there is that connection there. And I would say his best years were with Adam Gase, to be honest with you. Guys. So, the article reads: the Jets have told wide receiver Eric Decker that he will either trade or be released within this week. Reports come from ESPN's Adam Schefter. So there you guys go. Eric Decker leaving the Jets, and again, yet another weapon that the Jets. Again, they're gonna play everybody that they drafted. Obviously, Cooper Kupp. Not Cooper Kupp. Who the heck am I talking? I'm talking about the other white. What was his? out of Cal, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember his name right now. Obviously Willie Anderson, and Marshall, and so they're trying to play Quincy and Nuwan. They're trying to play all their young guys, which is probably the smartest move, and they're getting rid of everybody, literally. Got rid of Brandon Marshall, they're getting rid of Eric Decker, who's had injury problems throughout his career. So that's it for the Jets. But again, we talked about the Jets Calvin Pryor thing, and Jets wanted Calvin Pryor out of the locker room. So apparently one of the biggest reasons why Calvin was let go is because he is a locker room liability. So there you go. I'm not going to say that everybody in that locker room, in my opinion, is a liability. If you look at it, I mean, you can't have your best players, Muhammad Wilkerson, Sheldon Richardson, showing up late for team meetings. I mean, that's just not a great example to set for young players to begin with. I mean, that you're teaching them how to be a professional, and if that's how you're teaching them how to be a professional, that's not a good start. That's not a good way to start your career. And it's just, their culture is so messed up in New York. And I'm not saying, listen, I'm not hating because I'm a Dolphins fan, but if you think that let's say they're starting from scratch, right? Todd Bowles brought that culture there. So does he think, I don't think he's a good culture tone setter. I really don't think he is. I mean, obviously they drafted Jamal Adams. That was one of the bigger reasons they drafted him, is because he's a great leader, and I think they think he's going to change the culture. But Todd Bowles, your head coach is supposed to do that, because it starts from the top and it trickles down all the way to the bottom. So that's something to be concerned about if you're a Jets fan, is Todd Bowles, I would say. Because if I'm Todd Bowles, how the heck do I let that happen? And then still let them play on Sundays? I mean, that's not a good example. That's not setting an example for your team. That whole situation is so ridiculous, it's not even funny. It's so ridiculous. I really don't know who the heck the leader is on that team. I don't know what the heck is going on with them. Let's see here. Okay, so next is the Bills. I'm trying to pull up the article, and this is actually concerning Jeremy Maclin. So this is very interesting. Let's see here. God dang it, man. I had it in my notes somewhere. So the Bills had Jeremy Maclin in for a visit. And he actually stayed his second day. So he's 2 days now. He's had 2 visits. This would be his second visit with the Bills. So obviously the Bills are trying to figure out what to do with that receiver position. They tried the Percy Harvin experiment. That really didn't work out. Sammy Watkins can't stay healthy. They drafted Zay Jones. They're hoping that works out. Obviously, getting Jeremy Maclin would be a good thing for them. So let's get into details here about the whole Jeremy Maclin thing. To be honest with you, if I had to pick one over, because they're both had injured-riddled careers, Eric Decker and Jeremy Maclin, I would pick Eric Decker. I think Eric Decker has a little bit more left in the tank. He's a younger player. He's probably a little bit more talented, in my opinion. He's a bigger target. He's a good 50-50 ball guy. I don't think Jeremy Maclin's really the best 50-50 ball guy. He's not a physical receiver. Jeremy's a pretty finesse kind of receiver. So it's not a done deal yet. This is the article. You guys can read about it on Pro Football Focus, or Pro Football Rumors, NFL.com, ESPN. So this is by Zach Links. I don't want to take credit for this dude's work, because this does take a while to get done. He says it's not a done deal yet, but this might be a good sign for Jeremy Maclin and the Bills. The wide receivers Tuesday visit has extended to a second day. As a Buffalo Bills reporter reports, earlier this week it was reported that Maclin would meet with the Bills on Tuesday before possibly heading into the Ravens on Wednesday. Right now, it's not clear whether the Baltimore trip is still on Maclin's docket for today. If Maclin was initially scheduled to leave Buffalo on Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning, this could be a sign that that things are progressing between the two sides. Ultimately, the Ravens, Eagles, Browns, and other interested teams might not get their opportunity to meet with the wide receiver. So there you go. So those are all the teams that he's had interest from, that he's going. It sounds like he's getting. I mean, if he's stayed a second day, they're obviously offered him something that nobody else is offering him. But there are a lot of other teams that are interested. The Cleveland Browns would be a great fit for him, even though that's not a win now situation. And the Ravens are a great fit for him. The Eagles would be a return home, basically. That's where he started his career. So that might be a place he goes, but it sounds like he's probably most likely going to be a Bill, which I don't really care. Jeremy Maclin's a great player. And when I use the word great loosely. He's a really good player, I would say. There you go. And as far as other Bills news, that's about it. Let's see here. Quarterback, obviously Tyrod Taylor. I think it says here that he's pulling for Jeremy Maclin. And that's about it. So there's nothing really else to say there. And again, it's gonna be interesting to see if they still have the same pistol run-heavy offense that they did have last season, or do they switch it up a little bit? And is that gonna hurt Tyrod Taylor? Because I really think a lot of the greatness of Tyrod Taylor was because of that scheme. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm burping. So take that away from him, because there's a lot of misdirection. There's a lot of triple options, speed options in that offense, getting to keep a defense on their toes, right? Because Tyrod Taylor is a terrible pocket passer. He does not throw in rhythm because he has no footwork. He doesn't, again, meaning to dumb it down a little bit, he doesn't throw on time at all, because there is no rhythm, there's no timing, because he has his footwork is the definition of a 3-step drop is 1, 2, 3 throw, right? He doesn't do that. He literally hikes the ball and just stands there. So he's not a good pocket passer. So do they still have that kind of Cam Newton-esque? Because Cam Newton's actually a pretty dang good pocket passer. So he doesn't really he used to rely on that kind of offense a lot, and they still run some of those concepts down there in Carolina. But if you take that away from Tyrod Taylor, is he still the same guy? I really don't know. We'll figure that out. So that is it for the AFC East rumors. Hope you guys enjoyed that. That was interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there to keep your eyes on in terms of, looking behind enemy lines. So let's get into the Miami Dolphins fan Q&A portion of the show, where we answer Dolphins fan questions. Yep. So let's get into that. It's taking a while to load, okay? Chill out. Wait. Okay? Chill. It's a podcast. You're supposed to sit there and you're supposed to listen. As I'm talking about this, if you have made it this far in this video, 27 minutes in, I know that people are upset with my mic. I can't help that. I'm not a rich person. I can't afford to do all that, fancy stuff. If you just heard that was my fan Q&A playing in the background. But I apologize to you guys. I'm sorry. I can't do better. Something you're gonna have to deal with for not that long. I'm working on it, but yeah. But what I really wanted to say, this will be in a later video. I know this has nothing Dolphins related, but all right. So I got my fan Q&A pulled up. We're about to answer questions right after I say this. Chill out. Wait a second. I know this is a bunch of nonsense that you guys didn't sign up for, but what was I gonna say? You guys want me to do like a collaboration with another Dolphins YouTuber or another sports YouTuber? Leave it down in the comment section below. See, I would love to do that. I've seen some people talk about that down in the comment section below. So if you want me to do it, crap and leave somebody, and I'll try to do it with them. So these fan questions. He says, which player are you most? Okay, hang on. We answered that question. Eric, this question comes from Eric McKinney. He says, where do you think Jeremy Maclin will play next? I sure hope it ain't the Bills. Well, it probably is most likely going to be the Bills, Eric. I apologize. It's kind of sucks. This next question comes from Mikhail Hansen. He says, how do you think our defense will do this year, and how big of an impact do you think Charles Harris will? I've answered that question in the fan Q&A. I think Charles Harris, so far, has looked amazing. Looked like a crapping star. This next question comes from Quentin Tan 72 or Quinn Tan 72. I don't know how to pronounce your name. He says, will Jakeem Grant make this year his coming out party as an elite return man? I actually do think so. And it wasn't the fact that he's not a good instinctual runner or he doesn't know how to set up blocks or anything. He has football. He's good at it. It's just that he couldn't, his ball security was poor. That was the only reason he wasn't an elite return man. So I think yes. I think a year or two adjusting to the speed of the NFL on that transition, I think he'll be fine. This comes from Lou Augustus, or whatever your name is. It says, is it a good idea if we would have... He says, is it a good idea if you would have another person... See, this is what I was talking about. With you in a podcast and arguing about different topics like First Take. Yeah, that's a great idea. I would hope to do... I love watching YouTuber collaborations. I would love to do it with... I would love to do it with somebody... That's up to you guys, though. I really don't know who you would want me to do. That would 100% be up to you guys. So that's this next question comes from Lou. He says, "Do we have enough money to pay Landry what he deserves?" Yeah, we have enough money. The only reason it's not about money. It's about just being stupid and not being stupid, right? The reason people are so concerned, yeah, Jarvis has got one more year on his deal, right? Oh, yeah, but the thing about it is you don't want him to taste free agency. You don't want him to start talking to teams. You want to lock him up before he is able to do that. That is why everybody is so concerned. Not the fact that it's about not even letting it get to that point. You know what I'm saying? That's why everybody's so concerned. And so that's why every Dolphins fan is worried. There's another question from Lou. He says, "Are they going to add the roof in the stadium?" It's kind of a canopy. They already did. It's not a roof. They're never going to do that. And if they ever did do that, I would protest. That's taken a long tradition and a long tradition in Miami. We have, one of the more infamous home field advantages in the NFL. So taking that away from us would be blasphemous, to say the least. Lou says, if you were Adam Gase, what would you have done differently? Nothing. Probably nothing. I really don't. I would have to sit. There's nothing I have ever hated that he's ever done. And I know that sounds like, just licking the Dolphins' balls again. Well, I hated Joe Philbin. I mean, if I did videos back then, you guys would hear it every week. So, Doggy Dog 1417. He says, "And do you trust Adam Gase?" This is what he says. He says, "Do you trust Adam Gase with our team? Is he the next level Miami Dolphins coach? Is he coach that we've been searching for, or was last year just a fluke?" No, he is legit. He is one of the best coaches in the league, and he got snubbed for Coach of the Year. He is absolutely 100% our franchise head coach, for lack of a better term. Doggy Dog says, "And do you think Jarvis Landry can play next level football this year?" He's been playing next level. He played next level football last year. He's by far the best slot guy in the league. I think he will continue to play next level football. Doggy Dog says, "Do you think Miami Dolphins could take it if they wanted?" This is another question from him. He says, "Do you think it would?" Let's see, what does he say? He says, "Do you think the Miami Dolphins could take if they wanted to and be a next level team?" Listen. I know people are so burned with the Dolphins, and for over the years of the last 2 decades now, or not even that long, it just, people are so skeptical that we're an actual good team. So yes, we can definitely do that this upcoming season for a lot of different reasons that I've talked about at length. So yes, I do believe, if you're asking me in my opinion, yeah, absolutely. I think our team is insanely talented, and I think so far so good in terms of OTAs, and I think the things that we've been hearing are the things that we need to hear, not that we want to hear. And that's the things we want to hear too. But sometimes you like to, when you take in information, you like to hear it from the heart, and sometimes it can cloud you. And this coaching staff and this organization does not hold back in terms of their opinions on certain players. So that's the good thing about this organization. Hunter Hayes says, "I heard that Isaac Asiata has been getting pushed around by the D-line. He even told the media that he needs to get stronger. I know it's early, but do you think he will be able to step it up? Or do we go for a free agent somewhere?" I don't know where you got that from. Because I think, unless you got... I haven't heard anybody question his strength so far in OTAs. So, yeah, I mean, the man literally, there's a video, I don't know if it's on Dolphins.com, but he literally pulled a basketball goal out of solid cement. So, Isaac Asiata is probably the strongest. Obviously, killed everybody in terms of weightlifting in the combine. So, yeah, I don't know where you're getting that information from. But I don't think that's true. Now, I'm not saying you're lying. I'm just saying, Hunter, that whoever told you that is a piece of trash. And maybe I'm wrong. I could be 100% wrong too, and I could be the idiot in the situation. So I'm not blaming you. I'm not, degrading you or saying anything negative, because you've been a long time community member, and I appreciate you 100%. So you've been one of the more dedicated people. I've been with this channel for a while, so I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm just saying I don't know who told you that, but here's a better way to phrase it. I haven't heard anybody say that. And maybe you should just tell me who told you, and then I'll go check it out, and then I'll give you my opinion on it. Ricky Ricardo says, what are your opinions on ESPN? I already answered that. Who cares about ESPN? That's another. It's a short answer. G Delta 2003 says, what if Nate Allen, if he does, that would be a blessing if he performed better than expected. The highlight guy says, who will have a breakout season? I think I answered this question, but if I had to pick somebody who's just gonna, you know what? I'm gonna alter your question. Who's going to stick a stick up everybody's anus and literally point the middle, like give everybody the bird and just clock a bunch of people in the face and make a bunch of people hypocrites? It's gonna be Ryan Tannehill. I think he's gonna have really good stats this upcoming season. I think he's gonna play. I think he's gonna make a Pro Bowl. I think he's just gonna slap. He's just gonna crap in, bam. You know what I'm saying? All right, so let's see here. Ian Good, I answered your question. I appreciate you too, Ian. You've been here a while. Sean Jacobson says, predict stats for Tannehill and J.A. Parker. Did I not do that? Okay, so Tannehill, I'm going to say 32 or 33 touchdowns, but to give you an exact number, which that's dumb, I'm going to say 32. And in terms of interceptions, 12. Yards, close to 4,000, depending on certain things. I think it's definitely going to be close. I think he's going to throw for a lot more touchdowns, though. In terms of Jay, I'm going to say another 1,000-yard rushing year. Parker, 1,000 yards. Juice, 1,000 yards. Stills, probably 700 yards. And probably leads the receiver group in touchdowns and yards, average a catch, like 17 yards a catch, something ridiculous. And Julius Thomas, he's gonna have a lot of touchdowns. I'm gonna say he has. I take back what I said about Kenny. I think Joyce is gonna lead the passing attack in touchdowns. I think he's gonna get an even 10, and maybe a little bit less than that, but maybe right on the nose of that. He said, and then yeah. So that's my quick prediction. Sean says, do you think we will have another injury-riddled season? Even if we did, I think we're prepared to combat that. Erratic YT says, do you think we should sign Elvis Dumerville? No, he's a 3-4 guy. He's not a 4-3 guy. D Money 305 says, and I'm pretty sure he's a 49er. D underscore Money 305 Beast Mode says, can we win against the Raiders? Yeah, especially at home for sure. D underscore Money 305 Beast Mode says, what if TJ McDonald didn't get suspended? Then we would have one of the best tandems in the league. Drig Unity 182. He says, what's your PSN? I don't know why you want my PSN. If you could tell me why you want my PSN, I would give it to you. So there you go. Trevin says, do you think Kenya Drake and Drag, if whatever it has to do with, I mean, I do not mind giving it to you. Trevin says, do you think Kenya Drake's role in the running game will increase this year? I answer that question, yes. Basically, his role will just increase overall. Chris Prez says, what are the Dolphins? Why are the Dolphins so disrespected? They're not in the public eye enough. So there you go. The Gamer says, for Jarvis to be considered top 5 wide receiver, how many touchdowns should he score? God, I don't know how to answer that question. I think because people just look at receiver as a receiver, but he is a slot receiver, so he's not playing the same position as like a Julio. He is the best at his position, though. So Sofo says, do you think our pieces from last year would be the same progress or regress? Progress for sure. The Gamer says, do you think we will sign? No, not chance in ballsack heaven do we ever. We shouldn't even sign Jeremy Maclin. If we were to sign anybody, it would be Eric Decker. And the last but not least, SoFlo Sports says, predict Tannehill's stats. I just did, SoFlo. So hopefully, you've been a long time subscriber, I think. I feel like I've seen your comments. I know I've seen your comments a lot. Bang, guys, that's been it. That's been the podcast. This was a fairly long one. I guess it was fairly long, and it was a good one. Remember, this posts every single Wednesday. We give you all the Dolphins news you need to know about. I just had a mini seizure, or mini stroke. We give you all the Dolphins news you need to know about. And then we get into the AFC East news, and then we go into the fan Q&A. So if you like that, check out the channel. We also do NFL stuff. We do NFL podcast. I have an NFL podcast, basically the same vein as this one. And I have a bunch of public announcements. If you community announcement. So look out for that on the channel. And I am Skyxter1083, and I'll see you guys in the next one.